My brother didn't just steal my car, he stole the only thing that ever made me feel like I mattered. I bought the Civic with my own money when I was 17, not from a dealership, from an estate sale 3 towns over. The widow was selling her late husband's project car for $800. It didn't run. The interior smelled like mildew and regret, but I saw something nobody else did. For 6 months, I worked doubles at the bowling alley, came home at 2 a.m. smelling like fried mozzarella sticks and shoe spray, then spent another hour in our garage with YouTube videos and borrowed tools. I learned to replace a clutch by watching a guy in Kentucky with a thick accent and a loyal Rottweiler. My parents didn't notice. They were busy managing my brother Ethan's football recruiting visits, scouts at dinner every weekend, scholarship offers stacked on the kitchen counter like junk mail. Me? I was the invisible kid with the busted Honda. When the engine finally turned over for the first time, I didn't tell anyone. I just sat in the driver's seat, hands shaking on the wheel, listening to that imperfect but alive rumble. For the first time in my life, I'd finished something that mattered. That car became mine in every way. I drove it to my first job interview, my first date. The night my grandmother died, I sat in it for 3 hours in the hospital parking lot because it was the only place I could cry without someone telling me to be strong for the family. Ethan knew what that car meant. He'd ask to borrow it sometimes, always returned it clean, full tank, like he respected it. I thought I could trust him. Then came the morning I found our garage empty. My Civic gone, no note. No text, just tire marks on the concrete and a sick, hollow feeling in my chest. I called him 7 times. Finally, he answered, laughing over loud music and voices I didn't recognize. Relax, man. Took it to the beach with some friends. It's just a car. Just a car. He brought it back 3 days later. At 11 p.m., driven by someone else because Ethan was too drunk to walk straight. The passenger door was dented. The interior reeked of weed and spilled beer. The check engine light glowed like an accusation. When I popped the hood, I saw it. He'd blown the head gasket, driven it hard, overheated it, destroyed it. Months of work. Every paycheck I'd saved. Every YouTube tutorial I'd memorized. Gone. Dude, chill out, Ethan slurred. I'll help you fix it tomorrow. He never did. Our parents took his side. It's just a car. You can get another one. Ethan's under a lot of pressure with football, so I fixed it myself. Again. Sold my laptop, my guitar, anything with value. Spent 8 months rebuilding it in silence while Ethan signed his Division I scholarship and became the family hero. Last month, I took that Civic to a local car meet. Not to show off, just to exist around people who understood that a car could mean more than transportation. Engines humming, chrome catching sunlight, people who got it. Then I saw him, Ethan, walking toward me through the parking lot. His football career ended sophomore year. Torn ACL, poor grades, attitude problems, no scholarship, no glory, just a regular guy working at a tire shop, trying to figure out what went wrong. He stared at the Civic, clean, purring, alive. You really fixed it, he said quietly. I nodded. His voice cracked. Can I take it for a drive, just once? For old time's sake? I looked at him. My brother, the golden child who became a cautionary tale, and I said calmly, without anger, no. I started the engine. That imperfect but beautiful rumble filled the air between us. As I drove away, I realized something. Some people spend their whole lives waiting to matter to their family, but the Civic taught me different. You don't need their permission to matter. You just need to prove it to yourself.
What's the most shocking thing you've ever seen a mother do in a hospital? I was a second-year OB nurse when I met Claire, a 32-year-old woman who came into the ER late one night, 8 months pregnant. She was crying, clutching her belly, and her clothes were soaked in blood. The on-call doctor, Dr. Franklin, barely glanced at her chart before shaking his head. We need to prepare her for delivery, but I don't think there's a heartbeat. They hooked her up to the fetal monitor. Silence. No rhythmic beeping, no sign of life. The room fell quiet except for Claire's gasping breaths. Dr. Franklin started speaking in that detached, clinical voice I hate. I'm so sorry, but it appears you've had a fetal demise. We'll need to induce labor immediately. Claire shook her head violently. No, he's alive. I can feel him. He's moving right now. The doctor sighed, like she was just in denial. Sometimes, after a loss, mothers experience phantom movements. It's not unusual. Stop talking, she snapped. I know my baby is alive. Something in her voice made me pause. It wasn't the desperate denial I'd seen before, it was certainty. Absolute, unshakable certainty. When Dr. Franklin stepped out to order medications, Claire grabbed my wrist and whispered, please, just check again. Use a different machine, please. Protocol said there was no 0.1 confirmation from the monitor, and an ultrasound was enough, but my gut told me to listen. I wheeled in an old Doppler from the corner of the room, the kind most of the staff ignored because it was outdated. I pressed it gently to her abdomen. At first, nothing. Then faint, irregular, but unmistakable thump thump, thump thump. My eyes shot to hers. She'd heard it too. Tears streamed down her face. I told you. I rushed to grab a portable ultrasound and called for a different doctor. Dr. Patel arrived, scanned her belly, and his eyebrows shot up. We've got a live fetus here. Weak heartbeat, cord wrapped around the neck, but we can still save him if we move now. Within minutes, the room transformed into controlled chaos. Surgeons, anesthesiologists, nurses flying in every direction. Claire was rushed into an emergency C-section. I stayed by her side until they put her under. Her last words before the anesthesia took hold were, "Don't let them give up on him." 20 minutes later, they pulled out a tiny, blue-skinned baby boy. For a moment, I thought we were too late. Then the faintest cry. It grew louder until the whole room was filled with his furious wails. Claire woke up in recovery hours later, and the first thing she asked was, "Is he here?" year? I placed him in her arms, a perfect little boy with a shock of dark hair. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "I knew you were still fighting." Here's where the twist comes. 2 days later, Dr. Franklin came to discharge her. His tone was clipped. "Well, you and your miracle baby are cleared to go." But when Claire thanked him for saving her son, he said coldly, "Don't thank me. Thank her," nodding toward me. "I would have induced you that night if she hadn't ignored protocol." Claire froze. "Wait, you mean you would have killed him?" The doctor stiffened. "That's not what I said." But everyone in the room knew that's exactly what he meant. Later, when I was tidying Claire's room, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "You didn't just save my baby. You saved me. If I'd gone home without him, I wouldn't have survived either." When I left the hospital that night, I couldn't stop thinking about how close that baby had come to never taking his first breath, all because someone in authority decided not to believe a mother who knew her own body. And I realized something I'll never forget. Sometimes the difference between life and death isn't medicine. It's whether someone is willing to listen.
What happened when my teacher tried to hand my scholarship to someone else? I was 17, a high school senior, and the scholarship was my lifeline. Without it, college was a dream I couldn't afford. My mom worked endless double shifts at the diner. My dad had walked out years ago. We barely covered rent. The scholarship was full tuition, books, even housing. It wasn't just money, it was freedom. It was hope. It was my chance at a future. I'd done everything right. Perfect grades, debate team captain, community volunteering, tutoring freshmen. Every teacher told me I was the clear frontrunner. Everyone knew I had earned it. Awards night finally came. My mom ironed her only good dress. I borrowed a tie from my neighbor. We sat side by side in the auditorium, hands clasped so tightly my fingers ached. One by one, they announced awards. Math, science, leadership, athletics. Finally, the big moment, the scholarship, the one everything depended on. And this year's full academic scholarship goes to... Principal Harris paused dramatically. Amanda Price. Crowd erupted. Applause shook the room. Amanda, in her designer dress and sparkling jewelry, stood up beaming. She wasn't even in the top 10 of our class. My stomach flipped. My mom glanced at me, her face falling in confusion, then disappointment, then something even worse, helplessness. Afterward, while Amanda basked in congratulations, I stormed to my guidance counselor, Mrs. Doyle. "There has to be a mistake," I said. My voice cracked. "That scholarship is merit-based. I have the highest GPA." Mrs. Doyle gave me a tight smile, like she'd rehearsed it. "The committee considered other factors. Amanda represents the school better." Represents. That was code. Amanda's father had just donated 6 figures for a new stadium scoreboard. She didn't earn it. She bought it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until the streetlights blurred. Rage and despair twisted inside me. But then I remembered. The scholarship required verified community service hours. I had logged over 200, signed by directors of the shelter and food pantry. Amanda? She joked about skipping volunteer shifts all the time. The next day, I asked to see Amanda's service verification. Mrs. Doyle refused. "That's private," she snapped, but luck intervened. Amanda's brother bragged in math class that she forged her forms. She just scribbled her name, and Doyle signed it. That was the crack I needed. I gathered my paperwork, every signed hour, every verification. Then I contacted the local newspaper. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for the truth. 2 days later, the headline hit. "Student questions fairness of school scholarship process." The article spread like wildfire. Parents were outraged. Alumni commented online. Teachers whispered in the halls. Amanda's perfect smile vanished. By Monday, Principal Harris called me into his office. He was flushed, sweat soaking his collar. "Why didn't you come to us first?" "I did," I said, voice steady. Mrs. Doyle ignored me. He slammed a hand on his desk. "Do you realize the embarrassment you've caused this school?" I slid my folder across to him. "No." "Do you realize the fraud you tried to cover up?" By Friday, the school board held an emergency session. The truth spilled out. Amanda's service hours were forged. Committee had been pressured. Mrs. Doyle had signed off without checking. In front of the entire senior class, they revoked Amanda's scholarship. My name was announced as the rightful recipient. The gymnasium erupted. Some clapped, some whispered, some stared in shock. Amanda sat frozen, tears brimming. Her dad glaring daggers from the bleachers. Mrs. Doyle resigned 2 weeks later. For personal reasons, the official letter said. Everyone knew the real reason. Graduation day came. I crossed the stage, diploma in one hand, scholarship certificate in the other. My mom stood in the audience, sobbing, hands pressed to her mouth. For the first time, I felt the weight of possibility. College wasn't just a dream anymore. It was real. They tried to steal it. They tried to erase years of my work, my sweat, my sacrifices. But I refused to stay quiet. And in that moment, I learned something I'll carry forever. Sometimes doing the right thing means making people uncomfortable. Sometimes it means standing alone until the truth is louder than the lies. That scholarship wasn't just mine. It was proof. Proof that no matter how rigged the system seems, sometimes the underdog wins.
My fiance's family made fun of my starter job at every holiday for 3 years. When they found out what I actually make, they begged me to invest in their failing business. I sent them a card instead. The thing about keeping your mouth shut is that people eventually show you exactly who they are. I just didn't expect my future in-laws to reveal themselves at their own Thanksgiving table. I'm 32, software architect at a fintech company you've definitely used. I make $340,000 base, plus stock that vested for another $180,000, $500,000. But I dress like I work at Best Buy, hoodies, beat up Nikes. I drive a 2019 Civic I bought used. I grew up poor, government cheese poor. When you spend childhood worrying about electricity, you don't suddenly start buying Rolexes. My fiancée Megan understood this. She fell in love with me at $65,000, watched me grind through certifications and 3 a.m. debugging sessions. Her family was different. The Hartleys were old money adjacent. Megan's dad, Richard, ran a real estate company his father started. Her brother, Derek, managed the family portfolio, which meant losing money on bad investments. First time I met them, Richard looked me up and down like I'd tracked mud on his carpet. So, software. He said it like a skin condition. That's computers? At their holiday dinners, Richard went around asking everyone about their wins. Derek bragged about developments, printing money. Then Richard turned to me and our software friend. Any wins? Got promoted. 20% raise. That's nice. Good starter position. Starter position. I was making $95,000, more than Derek earned from actual work. Year 2 was worse. I'd hit $180,000. Still doing the computer thing? Richard asked. Any plans to get into something substantial? Megan deserves stability. Year 3, I proposed. Patricia examined the ring with barely concealed disappointment. It's lovely. Very practical. Richard added, when a man can afford better, he usually provides better. This brings us to last month. The Hartley Company was in serious trouble. Richard had leveraged properties to fund an expansion that collapsed. Derek's Nashville project burned through $2 million before a single tenant signed. Banks were calling in loans. Derek showed up at my apartment. His eyes swept over my IKEA furniture with contempt. Dad's company needs $5 million. You're about to be family. I don't have $5 million. He laughed. Obviously, but you know rich tech people. Why would anyone invest in a company already underwater? His face reddened. Sitting behind a computer, collecting your little salary, my little salary, whatever you make, it's not real money. It's just typing. I set down my coffee. Derek, you want to know what I actually make? $340,000 base, plus stock that vested for another $180. Last year I made $520,000. Typing. The silence was beautiful. That's not possible. Want to see my tax return? His face cycled through colors. If you make that much, why live like this? Because I grew up with nothing, and I learned money doesn't buy taste. It amplifies who you already are. Your family spent money you didn't earn for 3 generations, so you could help us. I could, but I won't. What? 3 years your family mocked my job, my apartment, my ring. Your father said Megan deserved better. You tried getting me into your Nashville disaster because you thought I was too stupid to know the difference. We didn't know. You didn't ask. You assumed. Because I wear hoodies and didn't inherit anything. I opened the door. You should go. 2 weeks later, Richard and Patricia visited my apartment for the first time. They sat on my IKEA couch while Patricia's eyes cataloged everything. I want to apologize, Richard finally said. You're clearly successful. You're apologizing because you need money. If your company was thriving, you'd still be calling me the computer guy. We're asking for help, and I'm declining. Last week, I sent them a card, wishing you stability. Remember, nothing beats real assets. Property never goes to zero. Your software friend. I included a $500 check, enough to be insulting, not enough to help. The Hartley house sold last month. Richard and Patricia moved into a 2-bedroom condo. Derek works as a real estate salesman now. And me? Still wearing hoodies, still driving my Civic, still making $500,000 a year typing. When people ask what I do, I say, just computers. Nobody laughs anymore.
Gave my son a birthday gift that exposed his mother's lies. 3 months ago, I was paying $20,400 monthly child support for my 13-year-old son, Marcus, while my ex-wife, Linda, played the perfect single mom on social media, telling everyone I abandoned them for a younger woman. Truth is, she cheated with her CrossFit trainer for 8 months. I had proof, texts, receipts, everything, but it didn't matter in court. She'd already poisoned Marcus against me. Every visit, he'd say, "Mom says you left because we weren't enough." Those words destroyed me. Linda's Instagram was all warrior single mom posts. Friends commenting, "He didn't deserve you, queen," while she lived off my money in my house, driving my Mercedes. Marcus barely looked at me during our weekends together. Then Marcus mentioned something interesting. Mom's old messages kept popping up on his iPad. That's when I realized Linda had logged her iCloud into it years ago and forgot. All her texts from 2019 onwards were backed up there, including the affair period. His 14th birthday was coming up. Linda threw this huge party, even made custom shirts saying, "Raised by a queen," posted everywhere about raising an amazing son all by herself. I knew she'd make me look like the absent father. I got Marcus the gaming laptop he wanted for his birthday, but I included a note. "Hey buddy, your mom mentioned your iPad has old messages clogging it up. To clear cache, settings, messages, search CrossFit, and delete. Should free up space. Love, Dad." I knew he'd be curious. Linda never mentioned doing CrossFit. She always said she got fit from stress after your father left. Saturday, 2 p.m., middle of the party, my phone exploded. Marcus found everything. Texts planning hotel meetups while I was at work. Messages laughing about how clueless I was. One where she told the trainer, after divorce, we'll have the house and his support payments. Set for life. But Marcus didn't just read them. In front of everyone at the party, he asked Linda, "Mom, what's CrossFit?" She laughed, said she'd never done it. He replied, "That's weird, because you texted Jake about it 847 times when married to Dad." Party went silent. Linda grabbed for his iPad, but Marcus had screenshot everything. He looked at her friends, her family, everyone wearing those shirts, and said, "She cheated on my dad for 8 months, then told everyone he abandoned us. Here's proof." He showed a text where Linda wrote, "Can't wait to blame this all on him and take everything." Linda claimed the messages were fake, that I'd manipulated them. But Marcus pulled up her iCloud, showed everyone the messages were real, with dates matching when Linda claimed to be at her sister's crying about my emotional abuse. The best part? Marcus found a message where Linda detailed her plan. "I'll tell him his dad chose work over family. He'll believe whatever I say. Kids always believe their moms." He read it out loud to everyone. Her friends started leaving. Her mother said, "You told us he cheated. You said he abandoned you for his secretary." Linda broke down. Not her usual sympathy tears, but pure panic. Marcus walked out and called me to pick him up. But here's what went nuclear. Marcus had been recording for TikTok. The whole confrontation went viral. 2.3 million views in 5 days. Someone found Linda's Instagram and flooded it with screenshots. She had to delete everything. My http everything. My lawyer called Monday. Linda suddenly wanted to co-parent peacefully. Marcus told the court counselor he wanted to live with me. With evidence his mother deliberately alienated him. Last week, Marcus moved in with me. Linda gets weekends, but Marcus finds excuses not to go. He's in therapy. Says finding those messages was like waking up from a spell. He found videos of Linda practicing her crying performances for court. The "Raised by a Queen" shirts became a meme. Someone made parodies saying, "Raised by a fraud." Linda begged me to make Marcus delete the TikTok, said it's ruining her reputation. I replied with her old text. His reputation doesn't matter, only winning does. Marcus says the laptop was the best gift ever, not for the laptop itself, but because it led him to the truth. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty about that note, but Marcus deserved to know who his mother really was, and he found out in her own words.
My aunt refused to let me stay at her
her house. When I got into uni, now that I've worked hard, she wants me to pay for her son's college. I got my first real job 3 months ago, after working fast food to survive. I live in a tiny flat 2 cities away because I go to an international school, and rent eats half my paycheck. When I got my first salary, I gifted it to my parents. It wasn't much, but they appreciated it. That happiness lasted 10 minutes. My mother shared the news in our family group chat. Within seconds, my aunt called. The same aunt who hadn't cared about my existence for years, suddenly asking detailed questions about my job and salary. Then came her real agenda. "Your cousin is going to college," she announced. "As family, you should contribute to his tuition fees." Family supports family. This was the same aunt who refused to let me stay with her 2 years ago when I got into this school. My mother had begged, explaining how hard it would be for a teenager alone in a new city. "We don't have space," she'd said, despite living in a 4-bedroom house with 3 people. My parents had to buy me a flat instead, and I've been working to cover rent ever since. Now she wanted money from me. "My son worked so hard to get into college," she continued. "You should have sympathy for him." The irony was suffocating. My aunt earned more in a month than I made all year, and my cousin spent most nights gaming, barely putting effort into school. With the little patience I had left, I explained that most of my salary went to basic needs like rent, food, and saving for my own tuition fees. "I can barely take care of myself," I said. "If you can do all that, you can donate some money," she snapped back. "Don't be selfish." I hung up on her. Minutes later, my mother called, confused about why her sister was complaining about me. I explained everything, including how Aunt had refused to help me 2 years ago. My mother went silent for a moment, then said, "I'm blocking her. You focus on your studies and your job." My aunt realized she'd been blocked and started pestering other relatives in the family chat, guilt-tripping anyone who wouldn't donate to her son's education fund. The messages were brutal, calling people selfish, claiming we didn't understand family values, suggesting we'd all forgotten where we came from. 2 days later came our quarterly family dinner at my parents' house. I arrived early, and when relatives started showing up at 5 p.m., my aunt walked in with her fake smile. I avoided her until dinner, when we sat at the long table for our traditional catch-up. One of my uncles asked about school results. My cousin went first, announcing he'd scored 26 out of 45 on his IB exams, a bare pass. Then my turn. I got a 42. The table erupted in applause. My aunt's face twisted with rage. She stood up dramatically. "This is exactly why you should help your cousin. You're doing well, and he deserves the same opportunity." She turned to the other relatives. "Surely we can all contribute to help family succeed." I remembered the advice from online forums I'd read during my sleepless nights dealing with her harassment. Time to set boundaries publicly. "I'll donate the exact amount you contributed to my school fees when I needed help," I said clearly, making sure everyone heard. Which, if you recall, was nothing. "And if my cousin needs money, I'd be happy to share my employer's contact information so he can apply for a job." The table went dead silent. My aunt's face transformed from fake sweetness to pure rage in seconds. She started screaming about how my mother had raised a heartless and stupid child, claiming I was now old enough to be a breadwinner for the family. A family that, she emphasized, included her household. That's when my father stood up. "Outside, now," he said, his voice cold. He didn't get her to another room before the cursing started. We could all hear him yelling about her entitlement, and how she had no right to depend on a teenager she'd refused to help. My aunt stormed back in, grabbed her purse, and yanked my cousin toward the door. "Talk some sense into your child," she screamed at my mother. "Anyone who thinks like them should be disowned." The door slammed. My grandmother started laughing. "That woman has always been delusional." Several relatives blocked her that night. Some called and yelled. My aunt kept ranting in the group chat about how my scholarships should go to my cousin instead.
Have you ever had a teacher with literally no common sense? My English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, was absolutely convinced that I was running some kind of underground cheating ring because I actually read the books we were assigned. She'd just attended a workshop about academic dishonesty and decided I was her mastermind criminal. Why? Because I could discuss plot details without constantly checking SparkNotes like everyone else. It started when we were reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and I mentioned that Harper Lee used the mockingbird as a symbol for innocence. Mrs. Patterson's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "How do you know that, Emma? That's very sophisticated for a sophomore." "Because I read the book," I replied, confused. She pulled me aside after class. "I'm watching you. Students who come with pre-prepared insights are usually getting help they shouldn't be getting." I stared at her in disbelief. "You mean doing research?" The next week during Romeo and Juliet, I pointed out a parallel between the balcony scene and a sonnet we'd studied. Mrs. Patterson slammed her book shut. "Emma, step into the hallway immediately." The entire class went silent. "Where did you get that connection?" she demanded. "I noticed it while reading," I stammered. "The imagery is similar." "Stop right there. That level of analysis isn't normal for someone your age. You're either getting outside help or memorizing study guides." She gave me a 0 for academic dishonesty, even though I'd literally just made an observation from the text. Word spread quickly. Other teachers started scrutinizing my essays. The librarian got suspicious when I checked out extra books. My parents got a call about my unusually advanced literary insights. Things escalated during our poetry unit. I mentioned reading Robert Frost for fun. Mrs. Patterson went pale. "You're reading poetry for pleasure?" "Yes, I like his nature imagery. That's exactly what someone would say if they'd memorized critical essays," she muttered. The breaking point came during our midterm. I analyzed appearance versus reality in Macbeth, referencing specific scenes and dramatic irony techniques. When she returned exams, mine had an F with "see me immediately." "This essay is too sophisticated," she said. "You've clearly plagiarized from multiple sources." "I can explain every point I made," I protested. "Nobody writes like this naturally. I'm referring you to the Academic Integrity Committee." That Friday, I sat in the vice principal's office with my parents while Mrs. Patterson presented her evidence. "Emma has consistently demonstrated knowledge beyond her grade level," she declared. "This indicates extensive outside assistance." My mom looked at the papers. "You mean she's good at English? In English class?" "It's the
sophistication that's concerning, Mrs. Patterson insisted. Students don't naturally think this critically. My dad showed them my Goodreads account. Over 200 books read, detailed reviews, reading challenges completed. She reads constantly, he said. Of course she's developed analytical skills. The vice principal reviewed my record. Straight A's in English since elementary school. Reading club participation, glowing recommendations. Then she looked at Mrs. Patterson. You've given an F to a student for being too good at English? I'm changing Emma's grade to an A+ and removing all warnings, the vice principal said firmly. And Mrs. Patterson, we need to discuss nurturing gifted students rather than punishing them. The next Monday, Mrs. Patterson avoided eye contact completely. Students started asking me for essay help since I apparently knew more than our teacher thought possible. By semester's end, half the class had transferred out. Meanwhile, kids who never read anything and copied from SparkNotes got praised for having age-appropriate analytical skills.
What happened when an arrogant passenger humiliated airport staff only to be denied boarding in front of everyone? Airports bring out the best and worst in people. For me, it was the worst day turned unforgettable. I was flying home after a long business trip, exhausted, my suitcase heavier than my body could handle. The security line was packed, and everyone was tired. That's when he appeared, the kind of man who thinks rules don't apply to him. Designer luggage, expensive watch, barking into 2 phones at once. He shoved past people, rolling his eyes at families with kids, muttering, "Some of us have places to be." When he cut directly in front of me, I said, "Excuse me, the line starts back there." He turned, smirked, and said loudly enough for half the line to hear, "You don't matter. I have priority." His words stung, not just because of the arrogance, but because of the way others laughed awkwardly, like they agreed he was untouchable. I swallowed my anger, but deep down, I promised myself this wouldn't be the end. At security, he tossed his bag onto the conveyor like he owned the place, snapping his fingers at a TSA agent. When they asked him to remove his laptop, he scoffed. "Do you know who I am? I fly first class every week. I don't have to follow the same rules as these people." The agent's jaw tightened, but he let it slide, probably not wanting a scene. I clenched my fists. Watching him walk away felt like swallowing glass, but karma has strange timing. At the gate, the flight was delayed due to weather. People sighed, sat on the floor, called loved ones. The man, he stormed up to the counter, berating the gate agent. "I pay more for one ticket than half these people make in a month. Get me on a plane now!" His voice boomed, humiliating the young woman behind the desk. She tried to stay professional, but I saw her hands shaking. Others looked away, pretending not to hear, but I couldn't. I pulled out my phone and quietly pressed record. For 20 minutes, he ranted about the airline, the staff, even the passengers. "Look at them," he sneered, gesturing at the crowd. "Cattle, that's what they are." I felt the air shift. People weren't ignoring him anymore. They were angry. Whispers spread. Phones came out. I wasn't the only one recording now. Finally, the gate agent excused herself, tears in her eyes. The man grinned like he'd won. But seconds later, 2 supervisors arrived with security. Calmly, one supervisor said, "Sir, you've been denied boarding for harassing staff and disturbing passengers." His face went crimson. "You can't do this. I'm a platinum member." Security didn't budge. They escorted him away, still shouting about his rights. The gate erupted in applause. Strangers high-fived. A little boy shouted, "Bye, mean man," and people laughed for the first time that day. That night, the video of his meltdown captured from multiple angles went viral. Millions watched him belittle staff and passengers, only to be escorted out in disgrace. Comments poured in. Finally, justice for the workers. Money doesn't buy class. This is why kindness matters. Within days, people recognized him as a wealthy real estate developer. News broke that several of his business partners cut ties, citing unprofessional behavior. His empire started to crumble, not because of competition, but because he couldn't treat others with respect. The next week, I received a message from the gate agent. She thanked me for standing up, even silently, by recording. "People like him think they're untouchable," she wrote. "But thanks to you, he wasn't." I cried reading it. I had felt so powerless in that line, watching him bulldoze through people like they were invisible. But the truth is, no one is invisible. One video, one act of accountability can change everything. Airports are supposed to be about connecting people. That day, one man tried to divide us rich versus poor, important versus unimportant, but he forgot the most important rule. Respect is the only true priority, and when he lost that, he lost everything.
My dad started charging me rent since I turned 18, and then kicked me out when my stepmom got pregnant with my sister. But it turns out the house was owned by my grandpa, and when he found out what dad did, he made him give back all my rent money and cover my new apartment. So now dad wants me to move back in to save money. My dad started charging me $500 monthly rent the day I turned 18. "You're an adult now. Time to learn responsibility." I paid every month for 3 years while working part-time and going to college for civil engineering. Then my stepmom got pregnant. 7 months before the birth, dad sat me down. "You have 2 months to move out. We need your room for the baby. You have 2 offices in this house. Why can't the baby go there? We've made our decision. Start looking for apartments." I was 21, in college, working minimum wage. I couldn't afford rent anywhere. I called my aunt in desperation, asking if I could move in temporarily. She was horrified. "Absolutely, you can stay with me, but I'm calling your grandpa right now." The next day, Grandpa showed up. I could hear Dad's angry voice through the walls. After an hour, Grandpa came to my room. You have 3 choices. Stay here with your dad, no more rent, move in with me, your grandma, or your aunt. Or I'll pay for your own apartment. I was relieved, but over the next weeks, Dad and stepmom became hostile. Passive-aggressive comments, exclusion from activities, uncomfortable silence. My stepsister asked, "Why are Mom and Dad so mad at you?" I chose the apartment. Grandpa moved me in, bought furniture, and handed me $15,000. "As long as you're working or studying, live here rent-free." Dad and I barely spoke for 6 months. Then after the baby was born, he called. "I miss you. The kids miss you. Move back home." "I'm sorry." I told him I'd think about it, but something felt wrong. The truth came out when I mentioned Dad's offer to my aunt. My cousin laughed. "I'm sure he does miss you." My aunt revealed everything. The house? Grandpa's, not Dad's. Grandpa had given all his kids homes when he sold his company, but Dad blew through his money on a failed law practice in New York. Grandpa had been secretly funding Dad's entire life for decades. The house, vacations, my school, everything. Dad was completely broke. When I called my aunt 7 months ago, Grandpa went nuclear. Not only for kicking me out, but for charging me rent in a house he didn't own. That $15,000 Grandpa gave me, exactly what I'd paid Dad in rent over 3 years. Grandpa forced Dad to pay it back. Now, Grandpa was also charging Dad $1,200 monthly for my apartment. My cousin explained, "Your dad is drowning. 3 kids, single income, and he owes Grandpa money. He wants you back because Grandpa will stop punishing him. He didn't miss me. He missed his financial safety net." I demanded Grandpa tell me everything. He confirmed it all. Dad had 0 savings. My college fund, from Grandpa and my late mom. Dad contributed almost nothing. A few weeks later, Grandpa called a family meeting. Dad showed up embarrassed with stepmom and my stepsister Cassie. Dad confessed everything. He'd lied to stepmom about owning the house. He'd taken parenting advice from stepmom's bigoted parents about charging me rent and kicking me out. They'd convinced him I needed to leave so stepmom's mother could move in and help with the baby. The real reason? Stepmom's mother had called me a slur. She couldn't stand having me in the house because I'm LGBTQ+. Dad was so desperate for their financial support that he kicked out his own daughter for bigots. Everyone was crying. Stepmom looked at me devastated. "I had no idea I made you feel unwelcome. I was never mad at you. I was mad at him." Stepmom kicked her mother out and cut contact with both parents. She and Dad separated within months, heading toward divorce. Dad lost his relationship with me, his marriage, and his comfortable life all at once because he chose to maintain an illusion of success he never actually had.
She sneaked out at 3 a.m. every night. What I discovered shattered me. My 15-year-old daughter Maya had been sneaking out at exactly 3 a.m. every night for weeks. At first, I thought it was just dreams, shadows moving across her bedroom wall. But the creaking floorboards in our 100-year-old house don't lie. I'm a light sleeper, especially since Sarah, her mother, and my wife passed away 3 years ago. I've never slept the same since. I started noticing patterns. The soft click of her door opening, the scrape of the window sliding up, the faint rustle of her footsteps on the gravel outside. I never confronted her, not yet. I told myself maybe it was sleepwalking, or maybe I just didn't want to admit I was scared. Scared of what I might find out, scared of losing her too. One morning, just before dawn, I caught her slipping back in. Her hair was messy and tangled with twigs. Her jeans were caked in dirt. There were fresh tears streaking her cheeks, and her hoodie had a rip across the sleeve. I stopped her in the kitchen. She looked straight at me, eyes that mirrored her mother's, and whispered, "Please don't stop me, Dad." She said it like a plea, one part desperation, one part warning. That's when I broke. My imagination went wild. Was she meeting someone dangerous? Selling something? Doing something reckless to cope with her grief? I couldn't sleep, couldn't work, couldn't breathe properly. I had already buried the love of my life. If something happened to Maya, I wouldn't survive it. So I did what terrified fathers do. I followed her. At 2:45 a.m., I waited by the living room window and watched her climb out like she'd done it 100 times before. She wore the same hoodie, carried a flashlight, and tucked a book under her arm. I stayed far behind, ducking behind hedges, mailboxes, trash cans like some amateur detective. She walked 6 blocks, past sleeping houses, until she reached St. Mary's Cemetery, the same place we had held her mother's funeral. She pushed through the creaky iron gate and disappeared among the headstones. My heart pounded. I expected anything. Drugs, vandalism, some cult-like ritual, but not what I found. Maya was sitting cross-legged on the grass, next to a small bronze grave. Her flashlight glowed softly on the name, Eleanor Montgomery, age 8. In her lap was a worn copy of Charlotte's Web. She was reading aloud, voice trembling, pausing at the sad parts, smiling at the funny ones. She even changed her tone for each character. It wasn't a performance. It was a gift. I stood frozen behind a marble angel statue, listening, watching. The next night, I followed again. This time, she brought a thermos of hot chocolate and a different book, Where the Red Fern Grows. She poured a little into the thermos cap and left it on the headstone like a ritual offering. Then she sat down and started reading again, her voice catching when the dogs died. She wiped her eyes and kept going, and I stayed hidden in the dark, trying not to cry. A few days later, I saw an elderly woman tending the grave. I introduced myself. Her name was Mrs. Montgomery, Eleanor's grandmother. I asked if she knew Maya. Her eyes welled with tears. Maya was Eleanor's pen pal. A school program paired them up while Eleanor was in the hospital for leukemia. They exchanged letters every week, books, favorite colors, dreams. Eleanor adored her. Then she told me something that shattered me. In her last letter, she said, Maya promised she would read Eleanor every single book they talked about. She said a promise doesn't end just because someone dies. That night, I didn't follow Maya. I walked beside her. She looked up in surprise, eyes wide with fear that I might stop her. Instead, I sat down in the wet grass next to her. She stared at me for a long time. Then wordlessly, she opened her book, handed it to me, and rested her head on my shoulder. We read until the sun came up, passing pages back and forth, crying sometimes, laughing quietly. Our voices were the only sounds in that silent cemetery. I thought Maya was spiraling. I thought she was hiding something dark, but what she was really doing was honoring a little girl she'd never even met, keeping her promise, giving voice to a child who never got to grow up.
Meet your son, my ex said, showing up at my office with a 5-year-old and demanding $94,000 in back child support. Bridget and I dated for 8 months in 2018. It ended when I found her in my apartment with someone else. She moved out that weekend, no pregnancy. Then she walked into my office building on a Thursday afternoon holding a small boy's hand. Security called me down. The kid had dark hair like mine, brown eyes like mine. Bridget handed me a manila envelope. This is River, he's yours. My lawyer calculated 5 years of back child support at $94,000. You can settle today or I'm filing with family court tomorrow. The dates would line up. We broke up in May 2018. A 5-year-old born in early 2019. Before I could respond, she dropped a business card on the desk and left. I called my attorney from the parking lot. She said if Bridget filed officially, I'd be ordered to test. Until results came back, which takes weeks. Temporary support could be ordered if she showed documentation linking me to the child. That night, I pulled every photo, every text from 2018. Last time I saw Bridget was May 7th, 2018. It was now October 2024. The next morning, an unknown number texted me. She tried this before. Ask about Marcus Chen. I hired a private investigator named Sarah Martinez. Within 24 hours, Sarah found Marcus Chen on LinkedIn. He worked at the same gym where Bridget taught spin classes. Marcus agreed to meet that same day. She told me the same thing in 2020, Marcus said, sliding a folder across the table. Said River was mine. Demanded $80,000. I got DNA testing. He opened the folder. Court documents from 2020. DNA results. 0% probability of paternity. The real father is Owen Kelly. He was her boyfriend before me, before you. Owen still pays child support and has River every other weekend. Sarah kept digging. She found Owen Kelly's social media. Photos of River from 2019 forward. Birthday parties, Halloween costumes, first day of school. She found court records from 2021. Owen Kelly was established as River's legal father with 99.8% DNA probability. He'd been paying $1,450 monthly since January 2021. Then Sarah uncovered something darker. Bridget's rent had doubled after the split. Owen's payments weren't enough anymore. Sarah found Bridget's former roommate, Jessica, who provided screenshots from September 2024. Bridget's messages, I found another ex. He's got a 6-figure job now. If I push hard enough before DNA results, I can get emergency support for at least 3 to 4 months. That's $12,000 minimum. Jessica replied, what if he demands testing immediately? Bridget, then I file for emergency support first and claim he's avoiding his child. By the time DNA proves anything, I'll have cashed out. When Bridget officially filed, my attorney responded with everything. Owen's current support payments, the 2021 paternity test, River's birth certificate listing Owen Kelly as father, Marcus Chen's 2020 case, and the text messages. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following week. Owen Kelly showed up. Marcus Chen showed up. Jessica showed up with her phone. Bridget's attorney tried arguing I could still be the father. My attorney introduced Owen. I'm River's biological father, Owen said, standing before the judge. Here's the court-ordered DNA test from 2021. Here's his birth certificate. Here's 4 years of canceled support checks. I see my son every other weekend. This woman is committing fraud while I'm already supporting my own child. The judge reviewed Owen's DNA results. 99.8% probability. Birth certificate with Owen's name. 4 years of payment records. Then Jessica testified. She read Bridget's messages aloud, including, if I push hard enough before DNA results, I can get emergency support for 3 to 4 months. That's $12,000 minimum. The judge looked at Bridget. Your claim is dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Kelly is established as River's legal father. I'm referring you to the district attorney for fraud, perjury, and attempted extortion. Then she turned to Owen. Mr. Kelly, given this conduct, using your son as a prop in a financial scheme, I'm modifying your custody arrangement effective immediately. You now have primary custody.
My mom called me panicking at 3 a.m. Your sister's in the hospital. Send $22,000 immediately, or she'll be left without support and we'll stick her with all the bills. I replied, call your perfect son, then ended the call and went back to bed. The next morning, a call came from the police station. My name's Riley. I'm 31, a high school teacher making $47,000 a year in a town where rent eats half of that. I'm also the family bank, the daughter who has her life together, which apparently means I exist to fund everyone else's disasters. My brother Ethan is 34. He drives a Tesla, posts vacation photos from Cabo, and hasn't returned a borrowed dollar since 2019. My sister Maya is 26, studying to be an influencer, which means our parents pay her rent while she films makeup tutorials. Me? I got a congratulations text when I made tenure. That 3 a.m. call wasn't unusual. Last month, mom needed $5,000 for Ethan's business opportunity. Before that, $3,200 for Maya's medical procedure that turned out to be cosmetic Botox. I've sent $34,000 in 2 years. I have the bank statements. Riley, Maya collapsed at a club. Her heart stopped. The hospital needs $22,000 up front for the surgery, or they won't operate. What hospital? Does it matter? Your sister is dying. Which hospital? Mom, Cedar Sinai. Riley, every second you waste. Call Ethan. He just bought a boat. I hung up, turned off my phone, went back to sleep. At 7:15 a.m., my landline rang. Yes, I keep one specifically because my family can't block me from work calls. Miss Chen, this is Officer Ramirez. LAPD. We have your brother Ethan in custody. He's requesting you as his phone call. What did he do? He was arrested at Cedar Sinai Medical Center, attempting to fraudulently obtain funds using a fabricated patient emergency. At the station, Ethan sat in an interrogation room looking shrunken. His $3,000 watch was in an evidence bag. Riley, thank God. This is a misunderstanding. What patient emergency did you fabricate? He shifted. Maya's fine, but I needed cash fast. The crypto thing, it wasn't a scam when I started, but then I owed people. Bad people. They gave me until Monday. So you invented a dying sister. I was going to pay you back. Once the next investment hit, you used Maya's name, her medical records. You called mom pretending to be a doctor. I didn't pretend to be a doctor. I had Trevor do it. Trevor, his golf buddy. He does great impressions. Officer Ramirez stepped in. Your brother attempted to file fraudulent insurance claims in your sister's name. When that failed, he planned to pocket your $22,000, tell your family the surgery went well, and disappear the money into his debt. Where's Maya? I asked. Cabo. Posted a bikini photo 2 hours ago. I looked at Ethan. really looked at him. His hair was perfect. His teeth were professionally whitened. He'd spent $200 on that haircut while I cut my own over the bathroom sink. I'm not bailing you out. Riley, please. These people will kill me. Then you should have made better choices. We're family. Family doesn't invent dead sisters to steal from people. I walked out. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed. Mom, how could you abandon your brother in his time of need? I didn't respond. 3 hours later, Dad called. Your brother needs $50,000 for bail and a lawyer. We're asking everyone to chip in. No, what happened to family first? I've been family first for 8 years. I've sent Veer and Dreisig $0 to Ethan sent $0. Maya sent $0. You've never once asked them to help me. You don't need help. You have a stable job. I have a stable job because I work 60-hour weeks and live in a 1-bedroom apartment with a broken heater. Ethan has a Tesla because you co-signed his loan. Silence. If you don't help, he'll go to prison. Then he'll go to prison. I blocked Dad's number. Then Mom's. Then the 17 family members who texted me variations of family helps family. The only person I didn't block was Maya. She called that evening. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was using my name. I know. Are you okay? Nobody had asked me that in years. No. I whispered. I'm not okay. I've been drowning trying to keep everyone else afloat. You don't have to anymore, she said. I'm getting a real job, and I'm testifying against Ethan. The trial took 4 months. Ethan tried the family sticks together defense. The jury took 90 minutes to convict him on wire fraud, identity theft, and insurance fraud. 18 months in federal prison. Mom left me a voicemail. I hope you're happy. Your brother's life is destroyed. I deleted it without listening.
What's the pettiest way you've ever ruined someone who underestimated you? I got fired over a text message. No meeting, no warning, just a 6-word message at 9:17 a.m. on a Monday. Don't come in, we're letting you go. That was it. No explanation. No thank you. I stared at the screen like it had insulted my entire bloodline. I had worked for this small marketing agency for 3 years, put in late nights, saved client deals, even trained half the new hires. And the boss, Mark, a guy who once called me his secret weapon, just ghost fired me like I was a bad Tinder date. I was angry, humiliated, but mostly I was focused. Because Mark made one very big mistake. He fired the wrong person without realizing how much I knew. See, I was more than just a content strategist. I had admin access to the back end of our project management system. I built our entire client onboarding workflow. I also happened to know Mark's biggest secret. He'd been using recycled proposals, billing clients double for reused assets, and inflating campaign reports with fake engagement stats, all of which I had flagged multiple times and been told to ignore. So yeah, I was done playing nice. But I didn't go nuclear right away. First, I went silent. Let him think I was just another disgruntled employee nursing my pride. Then I called Maya. Maya used to work in the agency's data analytics team. She quit last year after Mark tried to take credit for her award-winning strategy. She was brilliant, pissed off, and most importantly, she still had copies of old campaign performance data that directly contradicted what Mark was showing to clients. Together, we made a plan. I compiled a timeline of Mark's sketchy practices. Maya dug up screenshots, logs, and client reports with metadata timestamps that couldn't be faked. We anonymized everything, bundled it in a clean PDF with a neutral title, Performance Audit Overview, and emailed it to every major client under the guise of transparency. We didn't sign our names. Within 48 hours, 3 clients pulled out. One of them was worth $600,000 in annual revenue. By the end of the week, I heard from an old coworker that the team was in chaos. Mark blamed interns, panicked, and called an emergency meeting that half the staff didn't show up to. But I wasn't done, because Mark still hadn't paid me my final check. So I reported him to the state labor board and filed a claim. Then I took the same documentation we sent to clients and forwarded it to a journalist who covers agency fraud. The article dropped like a bomb. Small town marketing CEO under fire for data manipulation and unpaid labor. I was never named, but the quotes, they were mine. The next Monday, Mark called me. First time he'd ever used my number for anything other than telling me to stay late. Can we talk? He asked, voice tight. I think we already did, I replied. You texted me, remember? There was a pause, then a sigh. Look, I made a mistake. I acted emotionally. I'd like to offer you a consulting role to help us rebuild. I almost laughed out loud. You want me to fix the company you broke? No, he said quickly. Just help us make it through the audit. I'll compensate you fairly. I smiled. Mark, you once told me I was replaceable. You fired me by text. And now, you want my help? Silence. Here's my rate, I said. $500 an hour, minimum 20 hours prepaid. He hung up. 2 days later, the agency officially announced its shutdown. Due to unforeseen circumstances and loss of key partnerships, they said. Mark went dark online. The company's website disappeared. Most of the staff found better jobs within weeks, some through me and Maya, who started our own consulting collective. We called it Secret Weapon Strategy, just a little nod to the nickname Mark once gave me. Oh, and remember that unpaid check? I got it, along with a penalty fee. Now it hangs framed above my desk, right next to a sticky note that says, never let a man with a text message ruin your worth.
Your son can't come to Disney with us. My brother texted, our kids saved their birthday money. Yours didn't earn this. I stared at the message while Marcus sat across from me at IHOP. Birthday pancakes untouched because he just told me about the Disney trip his cousins wouldn't stop talking about at school. My brother David lived 2 miles away in a house I helped him buy. When his credit was destroyed after his DUI, I co-signed. When his divorce lawyer needed a retainer, I wired $3,000. When his kids needed Christmas because money was tight, I bought every single present under his tree while Marcus got thrift store clothes because we had to help family. Marcus was 10. He worked at the neighbor's farm every weekend for $20, feeding chickens and mucking stalls, saving for a new bike. When he heard about Disney, he dumped his jar on my bed, $340 in ones and fives that smelled like dirt and hope. Is it enough? He'd asked. I'd lied and said yes. David's text came 2 days before we were supposed to leave. I'd already taken the week off from my warehouse job. No pay, but I'd figured we'd make it work somehow. Sleep in the car, Pack sandwiches, skip the hotels. Our kids earned this, David wrote. They've been saving since Christmas. Your kid just plays video games. Marcus didn't play video games. We couldn't afford a console. I called him. Is this about the loan? I asked. 6 months ago, I'd said no to lending him another $2,000 for a boat. A boat. This is about teaching kids the value of money, he said. Marcus doesn't understand sacrifice. Marcus, who ate cereal for dinner 3 nights a week so I could make rent. Marcus, who never asked for birthday parties because he knew we couldn't afford them. Marcus, who told his teacher he didn't need the class field trip fee because dad works really hard. I hung up and made a decision. I opened my banking app and stared at the college fund I'd been building for Marcus since he was born. $24,000. Every tax refund, every overtime shift, every dollar I didn't spend on myself. I called Disney directly and asked about last-minute vacation packages. We have a 3-day park hopper package with resort stay, the agent said. Comes to $4,200 for 2. Book it, I said. Then I upgraded everything. Character breakfast, firework dessert party, lightsaber building experience, another $1,100. The real stroke of genius came when I realized David's family was staying at a value resort to save money. I booked us into the Grand Floridian, the fancy one where you can see the castle from your balcony. We drove down the night before David's family, checked into our room with its 2 queen beds and complimentary robes, and I watched Marcus's face as he stepped onto the balcony. Dad, he whispered, I can see Cinderella's castle. The next morning, we were in Magic Kingdom when David's family walked in. I saw them before they saw us, his kids already whining, David's wife clutching her phone like a weapon, my parents trailing behind looking exhausted. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of Marcus in front of the castle, wearing his new Mickey ears and holding a $15 turkey leg he'd already decided was the best thing he'd ever eaten. I sent it to the family group chat. Day 1, park hopper passes are amazing. 3 dots appeared immediately. David called. I declined it. He texted, where are you staying? Me, Grand Floridian. The concierge got us reservations at Be Our Guest for dinner. Marcus loved the gray stuff. My phone started blowing up. My mom, that's too expensive. David, you're being irresponsible. His wife, we're all staying at All-Star Sports to be responsible. How dare you flaunt wealth? I typed one message back. I'm spending my son's college fund on memories. Because apparently, that's the only investment that matters to this family. Then, I blocked them all for 3 days. Marcus didn't know about any of it. He just knew his dad had surprised him with the best week of his life. We rode every ride twice. Ate every snack, stayed until the park closed every night. On the drive home, he fell asleep holding his lightsaber, and I realized I didn't regret a single dollar. The college fund could be rebuilt, but the look on his face when he stepped onto that balcony, priceless.
What happened when every doctor dismissed my child's pain as just a virus, but the truth almost cost him his life? Parents know when something's wrong. Call it instinct, call it experience, but we know. That's what I kept telling myself as I held my 7-year-old son, Ethan, while he cried through another night of pain. It started with fevers, then stomach aches so bad he curled on the floor. We rushed him to urgent care. The doctor barely looked up from his chart. It's a virus. Kids get them all the time. Fluids and rest. I nodded, relieved at first. But the days dragged on, and Ethan only got worse. He refused food, winced when I touched his belly, and woke up screaming at night. Back we went. A different doctor this time, but the same dismissive tone. It's a stomach bug. Parents panic too quickly. He'll be fine. I wanted to believe them, but every time I looked at Ethan's pale face, my gut screamed otherwise. By week 2, he could barely walk. His little body shook with every step. We carried him back to the ER. The attending physician sighed loudly as we entered. You again? Still the same stomach ache? I clenched my fists. He's not eating. He's losing weight. Look at him. The doctor rolled his eyes. It's anxiety. Maybe he doesn't want to go to school. Kids somaticize stress. My husband stepped in, voice trembling with rage. He's 7. He loves school. This isn't stress. Something is wrong. But again, we were sent home with Tylenol and a pat on the back. That night, Ethan vomited blood. We sped back to the hospital, my heart racing, my mind screaming, don't let them brush us off again. A nurse saw the blood-stained towel in my hand and immediately wheeled us to triage. But even then, the same doctor muttered, probably gastritis. Parents exaggerate. I snapped. Run the scan. Now. I don't care what you think something is killing my son and you're ignoring it. The nurse's eyes softened. She whispered, I'll order it myself. Minutes later, Ethan was in radiology. I held his tiny hand as he lay still, the machine humming. He looked up at me whispering, Mommy, am I dying? My chest broke. Not if I can help it, baby. When the results came back, the room changed. The same dismissive doctor walked in, but this time, his face was pale. He couldn't meet my eyes. It's his appendix, he admitted quietly. Severe appendicitis. It's perforated. He needs emergency surgery now. For a moment, the world tilted. Weeks of being told I was overreacting, dramatic, paranoid, and all along, his body was breaking inside him. Ethan was rushed to surgery within the hour. I stood in the waiting room clutching his stuffed bear, shaking so hard I thought I'd collapse. My husband paced, whispering angry prayers. The surgeon came out 3 hours later, exhausted. We removed the appendix. It had ruptured days ago. Infection spread, but we flushed it. He's lucky. Another day, and he didn't finish. He didn't have to. I collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief and fury. When Ethan finally woke up, groggy and weak, I held his hand and promised him I'd never stop fighting for him. But I couldn't let it go. The negligence had nearly killed my son. I filed complaints. At first, the hospital brushed it off. Every doctor makes judgment calls, but when I showed them Ethan's medical record, the repeated visits, the ignored symptoms, the dismissive notes, suddenly, their tone changed. The doctor who had mocked us was retrained, and later left the hospital quietly. The nurse who ordered the scan visited us in recovery. story, tears in her eyes. "You saved him," she whispered. "Don't ever doubt yourself again." It took weeks for Ethan to heal. He has a scar now, small but permanent. Every time I see it, I feel rage all over again. Rage at the system that dismissed him. Rage at the arrogance that nearly stole my child. But I also feel pride, because I didn't stay quiet. I demanded answers when no one listened. Now, whenever another parent tells me a doctor brushed off their concerns, I tell them, "You know your child. Trust yourself. Don't stop until someone listens." Because I almost buried my son thanks to negligence. And the only reason he's here today is because I refused to let them silence me.
What's the most messed up situation you had to handle alone? I had to fire my own sister for stealing from customers, but she tried to destroy my life, and it backfired spectacularly. Last month, my sister Rachel begged me for a job at my coffee shop because she was broke and behind on rent, so I gave her a chance even though she had a history of drama. But within the first week, customers started complaining that their credit cards were being charged twice, and when I checked the system, I found she was running cards through a second time and pocketing the cash refunds. I confronted her privately, and she swore it was an accident and promised it would never happen again. But 2 days later, an elderly man came in furious because his card was charged 4 times for a single coffee. And when I pulled the footage, there was Rachel clear as day swiping his card multiple times while he wasn't looking. So I called her into the back office and told her she was fired and needed to return all the stolen money. But she laughed in my face and said good luck proving anything because she'd already deleted the security footage, or so she thought. But what she didn't know is that I had a backup system that automatically uploads to the cloud every hour. And when I showed her the evidence, her face went white and she started crying and begging for another chance. But I told her she had to leave immediately and pay back every cent she stole, or I'd call the police. But instead of taking responsibility, she stormed out screaming that I'd regret this and that she'd make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was. The next morning, I woke up to hundreds of notifications because she'd posted on every social media platform claiming I was abusing employees and stealing tips, and she even made fake accounts to leave 1-star reviews saying I was racist and served moldy food. And within hours, my coffee shop's reputation was destroyed and customers stopped coming. My best customer, Maria, who came in every morning for 3 years, crossed the street to avoid my shop, and I watched a group of teenagers point at my window and laugh while reading her fake reviews on their phones. The local food blogger who had given me a great review last year posted that she was deeply disappointed and couldn't recommend my business anymore. So I decided to post my own video showing the security footage of her stealing along with screenshots of her fake accounts and threatening messages. But before I could upload it, my phone rang, and it was Detective Martinez telling me to come down to the station immediately because someone had reported me for employee theft and fraud. When I got there, I found out Rachel had filed a police report claiming I was the one skimming money and blaming her for my crimes. But then Detective Martinez smiled and told me they'd already been investigating Rachel for months because she'd been doing this exact same scheme at 3 other businesses in town. And when they searched her apartment, they found over $15,000 in cash and detailed notes about which businesses were easiest to steal from, including mine. She'd been keeping a journal rating different establishments and had been recording our conversations to try and frame me. But the recordings actually proved her guilt instead because you could hear her confessing to the thefts and bragging about her schemes. But here's the crazy part. When they played back the recordings in the interrogation room, you could hear her on the phone with someone saying, "My stupid brother has no idea what's coming and planning to destroy my business even before I caught her stealing." And as they arrested her, she screamed that I'd set her up and ruined her life. But Detective Martinez looked at her and said the only person who ruined her life was herself, and she'd be facing federal charges for organized retail fraud across multiple businesses.
The car dealership bullied me over a cash payment, so I bought their business. I walked into Premium Auto Sales with $28,000 in cash to buy my dream car, a used BMW I'd been watching online for weeks. The young saleswoman seemed nervous handling that much money, but we completed everything by the book. Signed contract, VIN verification, temporary plates. I drove off feeling like I'd finally made it. The next morning, their finance manager Derek called. "There's been an issue with your purchase. We need you to come back immediately." When I arrived, he was waiting with crossed arms. "Cash deals over $15,000 require additional documentation," he announced loudly. "Federal regulations. You'll need to refinance through our lender or return the vehicle." I'd researched this extensively. There's no such requirement. I have my signed contract. The contract isn't valid without proper processing. Either refinance or we're reporting the vehicle stolen. When I refused, he made good on his threat. That afternoon, 2 police officers showed up at my workplace asking about a disputed vehicle purchase. Derek had filed a report claiming I'd taken the car without completing payment. I showed them my contract and receipt, and they left apologizing. But my employer's HR director pulled me aside. "We need to discuss this. Police involvement reflects poorly on the company." Derek had poisoned my professional reputation. The harassment became systematic. Their staff called my phone 23 times in one day. They contacted my insurance company questioning my coverage. They sent legal-looking letters marked urgent criminal matter that terrified my elderly mother when she visited. Then Derek went nuclear. He messaged everyone on my Facebook friends list. "Did you know my name is driving a stolen vehicle? Contact Premium Auto Sales if you've witnessed him with this car." My phone exploded with confused texts from friends, co-workers, even my ex-girlfriend. I documented everything. Screenshots, call logs, witness statements, but felt powerless. They were destroying my reputation reputation to force me back. That's when my car vanished from my apartment parking lot. When I called Derek, he answered on the first ring. Report it stolen, but good luck proving where it went. That car was always ours. My lawyer cousin listened to everything, then made a phone call. 20 minutes later, he was grinning. The business license for premium auto sales expired 4 months ago. They're operating illegally. What does that mean? Every contract they've signed since expiration is void, including their lease, insurance, and dealer license. He pulled up the state registry. The name is available for registration. I registered premium auto sales under a new LLC that day for $175. By evening, I owned their business name. My cousin drafted a letter delivered the next morning. Cease all operations or face legal action for trademark infringement. Return my car within 24 hours, along with $45,000 in damages. Derek called personally, voice shaking. This is insane. You can't just steal our business. Check the state registry. You're operating illegally under my trademark. Oh, and I've reported your lapsed license to the DMV. Within 6 hours, my car appeared in my parking lot, professionally detailed, with my keys on the seat and a handwritten apology. Derek offered $15,000. I declined. He went to $30,000. I declined. By day 3, the owner called offering $52,000 cash. You sent police to my workplace. You messaged my friends. You stole my car. I told him $52,000 plus you fire Derek and personally call my employer's HR director to retract everything. They agreed. Derek was terminated immediately. My employer received a formal letter. The $52,000 cleared within 48 hours. Derek now works at a rental car place, still telling people I set him up. I just wanted to buy a car with cash.
What happened when my doctor dismissed my pain as just stress, but someone else knew the truth? I was 19 when the pain started sharp cramps that doubled me over in class and left me sweating through my clothes. At first, I thought it was food poisoning, but when it returned week after week, I knew something was wrong. Finally, I went to the campus clinic. The doctor glanced at me for less than 2 minutes before smirking. It's probably anxiety. College kids think every stomach ache is an emergency. I protested. This isn't anxiety. I can't sleep. I can't eat. He scribbled a prescription for antacids. Drink more water, he said dismissively, but the pain got worse. Some nights I curled on the dorm bathroom floor, whispering to myself that it would pass. My friends begged me to go back, but humiliation kept me quiet. A month later, I collapsed in the library. The world blurred, my ears rang, and I remember clutching my stomach as students shouted for help. My best friend rushed me to the ER, her face white with panic. There, it happened again. The ER doctor barely touched me before sighing. It's stress. You girls need to stop Googling symptoms. Tears filled my eyes. I'm not making this up. He waved me off and left. But the nurse who had taken my vitals leaned down and whispered, "Don't give up. I've seen this before." 10 minutes later, she returned with another doctor, an older woman with sharp eyes. "I want a CT scan," she said firmly. The first doctor balked. "That's unnecessary." "It's necessary," she cut him off. They wheeled me into the scanner. The machine hummed as I prayed for answers. When the results came back, everything changed. The second doctor pointed at the images. "Appendicitis, advanced. She's hours from rupture." The room went silent. My friend gasped. My heart pounded with both fear and vindication. The ER doctor muttered, "Impossible. She didn't present typical, she presented pain." The female doctor snapped, "You just didn't listen." Within an hour, I was in surgery. The surgeon later told me, "If you'd waited another day, it could have been fatal." When I woke up groggy but alive, the nurse was waiting by my bed. She squeezed my hand and whispered, "Told you it wasn't in your head." I cried harder than I ever had, not from fear, but from gratitude. Someone had finally believed me. The story spread quietly. The dismissive ER doctor was reassigned. The nurse, meanwhile, became my hero. She visited during recovery, even on days I wasn't her patient. She brought me ice chips, told me stories about her own daughter in college, and reminded me, never apologize for fighting for your body. My parents drove up as soon as they heard. My mom clutched me like she'd never let go, whispering, "They almost lost you." My dad, normally quiet, stood in the corner with tears in his eyes, muttering, "Thank God someone listened." In that hospital room, I saw their faces change relief mixed with fury. They had trusted the system to protect me. Now they realized negligence nearly took me away from them. And me, I was different too. For weeks I had questioned myself, wondering if maybe I was exaggerating, maybe I was weak. But lying in that bed, scar across my stomach, I realized the truth. I wasn't crazy. I was ignored. And the difference between those two things nearly killed me. After I recovered, I reported what had happened. The hospital promised internal review, but I knew the system was built to protect doctors, not patients. Still, if one nurse could make a difference, maybe one complaint could too. Now, whenever someone tells me their pain is dismissed, I say the same thing. Keep fighting. Don't let them silence you. Because that day, a nurse's whisper didn't just save my life. It gave me back my voice and the reminder that sometimes survival depends on refusing to be quiet.
On our anniversary, she threw my gift in the trash. Don't want handmade junk. I didn't argue. I just took it out of the trash. The next day, she saw it in a gallery window with a $10,000 price tag. I'm David, 37, a custom woodworker. I make art pieces, boxes, sculptures. Been doing it for 8 years since I left corporate. Monica and I had been together 3 years. She works in real estate, makes better money, and never lets me forget it. Always little jabs about being the breadwinner, while I play with wood. For our anniversary, I spent 3 months crafting her a jewelry box walnut and maple inlay. Hand-carved details, dovetail joints so tight you couldn't slide a paper through, hidden compartments, magnetic catches, polished finish, my best work. I cooked her favorite meal, lit candles, Tried to make it special. She opened the box. Stared blankly. What is it? A jewelry box. Handmade for you, she sighed. I thought you were getting me the Tiffany bracelet. The $4,000 one I couldn't afford. She flipped the box like it was defective. I don't want handmade junk. Then walked into the kitchen and dropped it in the trash. 3 months of love and effort gone because it didn't have a brand name. While she laughed on the phone about the junk her boyfriend made, I pulled it out, cleaned it off, and drove to Hendrick's Gallery. Patricia, the owner, studied it carefully. Checked every joint, every line. Where have you been hiding this level of work? This was supposed to be a gift, I said. Didn't go over well. She smiled. This is gallery quality. I can move it for $8,000 to $10,000. Easy. 2 days later, an appraisal confirmed comparable pieces sold for up to $12,000. Patricia listed it at $10,500 and put it in the front window. Thursday morning, my phone exploded 8 missed calls, 15 texts from Monica. She'd seen the box. Her office was 2 blocks away. Why is my trash art being sold for over $10,000? She wrote. I replied, the handmade junk found a better home. That evening, she was waiting in my driveway, furious. Someone's actually buying it for $10,000? Probably. It's been appraised. Her tone shifted. Maybe I overreacted. It really was beautiful. Since we've been together 3 years, maybe I should get something from the sale. We could use it for a vacation. Or that bracelet I asked if she was sorry she threw it away. Or sorry, it was worth money. She said that wasn't fair. I told her the truth. I made it for her out of love. She tossed it because it wasn't luxury branded. That told me everything about how she saw me. The collector bought it Monday. Sale closed Wednesday. I got $5,000 after the gallery split and paid off my truck. Thursday, she came back again. Maybe we need a break, she said. I agree. She looked stunned. You're not even going to fight for this? I already did, I said. For 3 months with every cut and carve. You threw it in the garbage. She left. A few weeks later, her friend Tara called. Monica wanted to apologize. I asked one question. Would she still reach out if the box sold for $50 instead of $10,000? There was a long silence. Then Tara admitted Monica had been bragging non-stop about how she didn't realize I was actually talented. That told me all I needed. A month later, Monica showed up at my workshop. I was working on a $12,000 commission. She looked around, wide-eyed. I get it now, she said. I want to support your career. I didn't see your value before I asked. Do you see the value now because of me or the price tag? Everything she said circled back to money and recognition. Nothing about love or respect. I told her it was over. She started crying, saying people make mistakes. I reminded her she didn't just make a mistake. She threw away 3 months of my soul and laughed about it. She loved the idea of being with someone whose work sold for thousands, not the man who made it. She left. I watched her car disappear down the road, and for the first time in years, I felt nothing but relief.
What's the dumbest rule you've ever been caught breaking? My office had this absolutely ridiculous policy where employees couldn't eat anything that smelled during work hours. Our manager, Karen, literally kept a list of banned foods and would patrol the break room like some kind of food police. She'd already written up 3 people that month, including Susan, who got a formal warning for eating a banana because apparently the potassium smell was distracting to clients. Karen even banned coffee because the aroma was too stimulating for our sterile work environment. I'm sitting at my desk eating my sad, flavorless rice cakes when Karen suddenly materializes behind me like some kind of dietary demon. She's holding her phone with some smell detector app, pointing it directly at my lunch. That's registering 2.3 on the odor scale, she announces triumphantly. Clear violation of company policy. You're getting written up and that lunch needs to be disposed of immediately. I was absolutely livid. This psychopath had been terrorizing everyone for weeks, turning our office into some kind of sensory deprivation chamber. People were literally eating plain crackers and drinking water because everything else was too aromatic. You know what, Karen? You're absolutely right, I said, carefully wrapping up my rice cakes with exaggerated precision. I should definitely eat completely odorless food. Thank you for helping me become a better, scentless employee. Her smug expression wavered slightly, sensing something was brewing, but she nodded like she'd won some great victory. That's when I started bringing the most ridiculous, odorless meals in human history. The next day, I brought a lunch consisting entirely of ice cubes arranged artistically in a bento box. When Karen approached suspiciously, I explained, this is frozen water molecules, completely odorless and technically very nutritious. She couldn't argue with the science, but her eye was definitely twitching. Tuesday featured my masterpiece, a full meal of unflavored gelatin cut into various shapes like some kind of edible sculpture garden. When Karen demanded to know what I was eating, I proudly announced, this is purified collagen protein, completely scentless. It's basically invisible food for our invisible smell policy. Other employees started gathering around, absolutely dying, laughing as I demonstrated eating my wobbling, transparent lunch with a plastic spoon. Wednesday brought escalation. I arrived with a lunchbox full of nothing but air, sealed in individual Ziploc bags. When Karen saw me opening bag after bag and pretending to eat the contents, she finally snapped, what exactly do you think you're doing? She demanded. I'm consuming atmospheric gases, I replied innocently. Nitrogen, oxygen, and trace elements. Completely odorless. Then something absolutely beautiful started happening. Mike from accounting caught on immediately and started bringing his own ridiculous, odorless lunches consisting entirely of plain ice and unflavored water. Then Jennifer began eating meals made entirely of clear, unflavored jello shaped like actual food, but completely transparent. Within a week, half the office was participating in the most absurd, odorless eating contest in corporate history. Karen was completely losing her mind, walking around frantically with her smell detector trying to find something, anything to complain about. But we weren't breaking any rules. We were following her precious scent policy to absolute perfection, and she knew it. That's exactly when the CEO walked in for his quarterly office visit. He surveyed the scene of 20 employees pretending to eat invisible food and immediately burst out laughing. What in the world is happening here? He asked, barely containing himself while watching a woman eating what appeared to be absolutely nothing from an empty bowl. Karen tried desperately explaining her enforcement strategy, but he cut her off mid-sentence. You're terminated effective immediately. This is supposed to be an office where people work, not a performance performance art installation where employees pretend to eat air. He turned to all of us and announced, "Catered lunch is on the company today, and bring whatever food you want." The ridiculous scent policy disappeared that very afternoon, and Karen was escorted out by security while we all enjoyed the most aromatic pizza party in office history.
At the inheritance meeting, I asked why my name was missing. My dad said, "We forgot you." And everyone laughed. "Your grandma handed everything to the golden child. Know your place." My mom added. I just smiled. The estate lawyer entered and said, "We have a sealed letter." He read the last page first. The room fell silent. But when the lawyer read the next line, "My name's Diana. I'm 31, a traveling nurse, the middle child who answers the phone at 2 a.m. and drives 6 hours when someone needs support. I know IV lines, blood pressure thresholds, and exactly how long you can run on caffeine before your hands shake. I also know how my family works. My younger brother Kyle gets the praise. My older sister Megan gets the excuses. I get the to-do list. When grandma's health declined, I was the one who adjusted shifts. I bathed her. I organized her pills into those plastic weekday boxes. I slept on her couch for 3 months because nobody else had time." Kyle posted a photo of her birthday cake and captioned it, "My queen." He stayed 40 minutes. Megan called once a week, usually while driving, usually distracted. I was there when grandma couldn't remember my name. I was there when she remembered it again and squeezed my hand so hard it bruised. When she passed, I didn't cry at the funeral. I'd already cried alone in her kitchen, scrubbing a pan she'd never use again. The inheritance meeting was scheduled for a Thursday. I drove 4 hours after a double shift. My scrubs were still in the car. I hadn't eaten since 6 a.m. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and new carpet. My parents sat at the head of the table like they owned the room. Kyle wore a blazer. Megan had gotten her nails done. I noticed the printed allocation sheet. 3 names. Mine wasn't there. "Where am I?" I asked. Dad didn't even look up. "We forgot you." Kyle snorted. Mom smoothed her blouse. "Grandma gave everything to the golden child," she said, nodding toward Kyle. "He was her favorite. You should know your place by now." I didn't argue. I just smiled. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, there's a sealed letter. Your grandmother requested it be read first." He opened the envelope. Started at the end. "If anyone laughs," he read, "check the math." Nobody moved. He flipped to the beginning. "To my family. I kept a ledger. Not because I didn't trust you. Because I wanted the truth to outlive me." Mom's jaw tightened. The lawyer continued. "Kyle borrowed $47,000 over 6 years. He paid back nothing. Megan borrowed $23,000. She paid back $200 and called it symbolic. Diana borrowed $4,500 for nursing school. She paid back $6,200 with interest I never asked for." Kyle's face went white. "Diana," the lawyer read, "is the only one who visited without being asked. She cleaned without complaining. She held my hand when I was afraid. She is not forgotten. She is the reason I remembered how to trust." I felt my throat close. "To Diana, I leave the house. To Kyle and Megan, I leave what they gave me. Nothing of substance and everything I need to forgive." Megan stood up. "This is insane. She wasn't in her right mind." The lawyer slid a folder across the table. "Your grandmother had 3 independent cognitive assessments in her final year. All confirmed full capacity. She also left video testimony." Kyle lunged for the folder. "I'll contest this. There's a clause," the lawyer said. "Anyone who contests receives $1 and forfeits their share of any remaining assets." Mom turned to me. "You manipulated her." "I bathed her," I said. "I changed her sheets. I listened to the same story 40 times because it made her happy." "You were always jealous," Megan hissed. "I was always there." Dad finally spoke. "This isn't over." I stood. "For you, maybe. For me, it ended when I realized I was the only one who showed up." I walked out. 3 weeks later, I moved into Grandma's house. It still smelled like her lavender soap. I found her ledger in the kitchen drawer, right where she always kept it. On the last page, she'd written, "Diana, you didn't owe me anything. You gave anyway. That's not debt, that's love." Kyle tried calling twice. I let it ring. Mom sent a text. "You've destroyed this family." I typed back. "I kept receipts. You kept expectations." Then I blocked her number. Last week, I hung Grandma's photo above the kitchen sink. Every morning, I see her face while I make coffee. I don't feel guilty. I feel clear. Some people confuse being needed with being loved. I finally learned the difference. The house is quiet now, the right kind of quiet. And for the first time in years, I sleep through the night.